Good afternoon. My name is John, and this is the Homestead Diary. We're going to shoot a little video which is going to talk about how to run a skid steer. And this is by no means universal. I'm talking specifically about an older case skid steer. I don't remember exactly what number, model, whatever it is. Probably an 80s version. But it's a good machine that we have access to. So if you climb in the cab and you sit down and you look to your upper right hand side, there are controls. There's a key, and which you'll obviously turn to the right in order to work. But right next to it is a rubber button thing with a series of temperatures and times that you would hold the button down. That button is your glow plug control mechanism. And so at a certain temperature, you'll hold it for 15 seconds or 30 seconds or 45 seconds or whatever the thing says. And so after you do that, you turn the key. In my experience with ambient temperatures in between 70 and 90, the first time you turn it, it's not going to work. You let it turn over like 5-6 times, and then you wait a couple of seconds and then let it turn over 5 or 6 more times, and it'll fire up. Now, if it's a little bit colder, then that's not going to work as far as getting it started. What you need to do, if you try it the first time and it doesn't work, then you you get out of the machine and you go around the right-hand side. That's from the driver's perspective. The right-hand side of the machine, and you'll see the air intake. I think there's a filter there or something, and you pull it off and you put a shot of ether or starting fluid, whatever you want to call it, in there. Try to start it again, and it should fire up. And so now you fired up the machine, you got it running. Now what do? Well, to your left and right, as you're sitting in the seat, you see the handles that are your drive handles, as well as operating the bucket. But forward of those, you see a couple of what look like handles, and they're in the vertical position. Those are your brakes. They make it so that the machine will not operate forward, backward, up or down, whatever with the bucket. It won't work unless you flip those both down into the horizontal position, and you'll see there's like little levers that catch them in place. And then in order to flip them back up, you got to push the lever and then pull them up into back up into the vertical position. If you're going to leave the machine, then for any reason, then you definitely want to put those in place in the vertical position, because that way you bump the controls, it's not going to move on you. And so put them in the horizontal position. Down to your right hand side, you'll see you'll see the throttle. I don't recall whether or not it's labeled throttle, but it's got like 5 or 6 positions or whatever. And of course you're starting in the lowest idle position. In terms of control, the machine is easier to control when it is in low throttle. It tends to react quickly when you move your controls. And obviously the controls forward and back, you can, if you push forward with one and pull back with the other, then the skid steer will turn. Or you push more forward than the other one, then the skid steer will also turn. It turns by skidding because it's a skid steer. And then with your control handles, if you tip them inward, they'll do one thing, and if you tip them outward, they'll do another. And so right hand side, tip it out and the boom will go up. You tip it in and the boom will go down. And the left hand side, your bucket will dump, and if you tip it in, then your bucket will scoop. I think that's how it goes. It's been, I don't know, 10 years or so since I ran a case skid steer, but I think that's how it works. Anyway, be very cautious about how you operate this thing, because it is a very powerful machine. It can cause a lot of damage and prone to rolling over if you're not considering your hillside and your bumps and all that sort of thing. Make sure that you have your seatbelt on, because I have been in a tractor before that rolled over, and having my seatbelt on means I'm still alive or not broken, or imagine your scenario. And so, very important. Now, because of the way that the skid steer is kind of tippy and tends to bounce around, it has a tendency, if you hit a bump and it causes one of your hands to move in a direction that you do not intend, that will cause a reaction in the skid steer. And the skid steer will now move in that direction, which causes your hand to move in the other direction. And the next thing you know, you're bouncing all over the place, completely out of control. If that begins to happen, let go of the controls. Just let go. and the skid steer will stop. It's pretty amazing how that works. More than once, I've found myself in that kind of position because it's a skid steer and that's what they do. Or maybe I'm just not that experienced of an operator. Anyway, seems like there was something else. Oh, so if you want to add or remove an attachment, if you look in between your attachment, usually the bucket, and the skid steer, you'll see two levers. This is a mechanical setup where if the levers are in the horizontal position, then your implement is locked into place. And if they're in the vertical position, they are not. Make sure that your implement, your bucket, whatever, is all the way on the ground before you attempt to operate the levers. Otherwise, it might just fall. And what else? Don't run it out of fuel because it's a diesel and that's a bad idea. Whatever. I don't know if this particular machine has a fuel gauge on it or not. I haven't operated that much. I've only had access to it for a very short period of time, so I don't remember all the details about it. But I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And happy operating. Y'all have a blessed day.